The recording. I will share screen.
Oh.
There we go. All right, we're up to number 5.
I'll go ahead and read unless, Linda, you want to start?
No, that's okay, Gary. You go for it.
Okay. Fear is always a sign of strain, arising whenever what you want conflicts with what you do. This situation arises in 2 ways. First, you can choose to do conflicting things either simultaneously or successively. This produces conflicted behavior, which is intolerable to you because the part of the mind that wants to do something else is outraged. Second, you can behave as you think you should, but without entirely wanting to do so. This produces consistent behavior, but entails great strain. In both cases, the mind and the behavior are out of accord, resulting in a situation in which you are doing what you do not wholly want to do. This arouses a sense of coercion that usually produces rage, and projection is likely to follow. Whenever there is fear, it is because you've not made up your mind. Your mind is therefore split, and your behavior inevitably becomes erratic. Correcting at the behavioral level can shift the error, but the first to the second type, but will not obliterate the fear. I love that one line when it says, whenever there is fear, it is because you've not made up your mind. I've never thought of it in this way before. Has anyone else ever thought of it like that before? Whenever there's fears, because you haven't made up your mind? I haven't.
No, but it makes sense. That's where procrastination comes from as well. You don't do because you're scared of something.
Yeah, because you don't want to do.
Yeah. Linda, what were you going to say?
Oh, there's times when if I really don't want to do something, I'll just say, you know what? I'm not going to do it. If I don't want to do it, I'm just not going to do it. And I don't until I'm ready to do it. And that can be even washing dishes. It's just all those little things as well.
Joey, do you have anything to throw into this?
Not really. I just I love that line. That line is what stood out the most in that whole paragraph.
Yeah, me too. I've just never thought of fear like that. I'm going to write that down if you guys will indulge me for a moment. This fear is because
I can't think of it, but what's the word where you think of something and you just go and do it? Like you just, oh man, my brain over the last little while has been shocking, but compulsive. And you just compulsively go and do something.
I was going to say decisively, but
what was that? Sorry?
I was going to say decisively.
No. Yeah. Compulsive. Because I grew up being compulsive. It was like, when you grow up always being told don't with no explanation about why you shouldn't, I would just go and do it because it was my own way of learning my own lessons and deciding whether it was something that I wanted to do again or not do again. So when I think about it, there may have been some fear there, but I was more than happy to go and try it anyway, whereas now I don't do that as much. I guess it's just a more relaxed approach, probably because of my lifestyle now, but it's more relaxed. And if I do want to, I do. If I don't want to, I don't. I mean, like, even last night I was outside cooking and some guy came over and he was telling me stuff about how, the cops are after him, but they know where he is, so he's not sure why they're not coming to get him, and all this sort of stuff. So I came back into the van and I said to Shaz, we're just locking all the doors, we're closing all the curtains. And you just don't talk to people like that. It's really weird. But the compulsion wasn't to leave. It was more, I don't know, it's kind of a bit of an adrenaline kind of thing going on as well. And even if I'd been here on my own, I still wouldn't have left. I would have stayed. But it just makes you think, you drive into a place and you expect it just to be, well, we're surrounded by water. So you think, wow, I'm in the best place in the world. It just takes one little thing to give you that bit of fear. And it just takes a little bit of the shine off it. It's quite bizarre.
Yep, that's for sure. So we got number 6. Is there anything we need to discuss about number 5?
I'm kind of struggling a little bit with it, actually, because it keeps saying what you want, and I guess it's coming from the place where we understand at this point in time, or we should understand, that what we're striving for and what we want is in accord with the highest good, but often what we want is not in our highest good. So doing what you want, it's a completely different thing from fear. It's like, well, I want to have a piece of chocolate. That's not, I don't know. I'm just a bit, I need to sit with this one for a lot longer, actually. I'll probably need to read myself.
They made it very black and white, and I don't know if it's black and white like that.
But I think there's always fear attached to something, like even having a piece of chocolate. Part of your brain is saying, but if you have some chocolate, you'll put weight on. There's still that little bit of fear attached to all of those different things that we do. It's still our choice to decide whether we do it or not. Last night I ate a half a block of chocolate, and this morning I woke up and thought, what the hell did I do that for? But it's I think that there's fear attached to everything, unless it's something that we do on a regular basis where it just becomes a normal everyday thing. But otherwise, if it's something new or something to do with putting on weight, or there's always that little thing in the back of your mind, that little bit of fear is the way that I see it.
Well, I'll go back to that one line. Whenever there's fear, it is because you've not made up your mind. And if you take something as simple as eating chocolate, if you have a conflict inside your head around eating chocolate, obviously there's a parts difference. There's a parts conflict. So it's because you haven't made up your mind. In other words, you have a split mind. One wants to do one thing, the other wants to do this other thing. And I think what correcting at the behavioral level can shift the error from the first to second type, but not obliterate the fear. I think that I'm sure we'll get clarity when we go to number 6, but I think what it's going to be referring to is that when we make up our mind that we're going to go down this road and this road only, and anything that deviates or contributes to a deviation is a split mind. So when you want to eat chocolate, but then there's a part of you that fears that you can't or shouldn't eat chocolate, you're working at the behavioral level. But if you go up to, what about my health? What about my ability to stay aligned to my word? If you start going up a higher logical level to identity, then there's no conflict. It's just a no-brainer. That's just what you do. Like, I'm always around a lot of meat eaters that, are always saying, Gary, why are you a vegetarian? Why don't you just eat meat? It's just so simple. And I'm like, I won't eat meat. And, I explain why, but, at the same time, they don't get it. It doesn't matter to me. It literally has zero effect. And because at a higher logical level, I'm not split at all about that. not even in the remote tiny bit, I'm not split about why my decision is sound for me. So let's read on to number 6 and see if it doesn't clarify more. Linda, would you like to read?
Sure.
Joey's suffering from lack of sleep, and Veronica's got a frog.
So
this is
is that all of number 6 on
No.
EV?
No, but I managed to stop at least at the stop of a sentence. So
Okay.
once you
no
get to there, I'll
worries.
pick it over.
It is possible to reach a state in which you bring your mind under my guidance without conscious effort, but this implies a willingness that you have not developed as yet. The Holy Spirit cannot ask more than you are willing to do. The strength to do comes from your undivided decision. There is no strain in doing God's will as soon as you recognize that it is also your own. The lesson here is quite simple, but particularly apt to be overlooked. I will therefore repeat it, urging you to listen. Only your mind can produce fear. It does so whenever it is conflicted in what it wants, producing inevitable strain because wanting and doing are discordant. This can be corrected only by accepting a unified goal. There you go. It's just said in a different way, summarized, really, isn't it? That previous paragraph.
Does anyone have anything they want to say about that?
No, it just answered all my questions, really.
Would you have a question, V?
No, that clarifies it beautifully.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Joe, do you feel like reading, or do you want me to pick up that?
I can jump in here.
Okay, so we're on number 7.
The first corrective step in undoing the error is to know first that the conflict is an expression of fear. Say to yourself that you must somehow have chosen not to love, or the fear could not have arisen. Then the whole process of correction becomes nothing more than a series of pragmatic steps in larger process of accepting the atonement as the remedy. These steps may be summarized in this way. Know first that this is fear. Fear arises from lack of love. The only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. That's a line you use often, Gary, or similar. Perfect love is the atonement.
Now we have another definition for atonement.
Perfect love is the atonement. I like that too.
Yeah.
I love those steps.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to have a whole chapter on atonement at the end of all this. Because I keep reiterating all the things that atonement kind of means, because it's such just a weird word I never really ever use.
V, do you want me to read the next one?
I'll read the next one so that I can swap over pages.
Okay.
When I kind of read it. Okay, I have emphasized that the miracle or the expression of atonement is always a sign of respect from the worthy to the worthy. The recognition of this worth is re-established by the atonement. It is obvious then that when you are afraid, you have placed yourself in a position where you need atonement. You have done something loveless, having chosen without love. This is precisely the situation for which the atonement was offered. The need for the remedy inspired its establishment. As long as you recognize only the need for the remedy, you will remain fearful. However, as soon as you accept the remedy, you have abolished the fear. This is how true healing occurs.
There's something quite profound in that.
Yeah.
I'm going to read it again so it doesn't stress your voice.
Yeah, sure.
We're on number 8, correct?
Yep.
Okay. I have emphasized that the miracle or the expression of atonement is always a sign of respect from worthy to the worthy, meaning you're both the same. The recognition of this worth is reestablished by the atonement. It is obvious then that when you are afraid, you have placed yourself in a position where you need atonement. You have done something loveless, having chosen without love. This is precisely the situation in which the atonement was offered. The need for the remedy inspired its establishment. As long as you recognize only the need for the remedy, you will remain fearful. However, as soon as you accept the remedy, which is the atonement, you have abolished fear. This is how true healing occurs. The place where I got stuck was where it says, you place yourself in a position where you need atonement. You have done something loveless, having chosen without love. And that immediately kind of sparked this little sense of, you know, the aspect and the belief in sin. And as I thought about it more, I don't think that's what it's talking about. I keep going back to that, some of the first lessons in the Course in Miracles where it says, my thoughts don't mean anything. Like my thinking doesn't mean anything. And that, in my mind, is where people misfire and leave the atonement, because our thoughts generally are always thinking in a separated frame. You know, they're always thinking in separation rather than in oneness and in the atonement. So in my mind, and this is how I'm just interpreting it, when it says you've done something loveless, having chosen without love, it's that my thinking is being done oftentimes outside my own awareness in a way that produces separation and difference rather than my thinking being aligned to the atonement. And it says this is precisely the situation for which the atonement was offered. And so I think that as soon as you shift the mind from the separated thinking, the condemnation, the judgment, whatever it is, to the act of atonement, that's where the healing occurs. But I think it's in these micro strategies, these micro times that this happens. I went up to the pool the other night, and lo and behold,
Oh no.
4 screaming children and 6 toothless Arkansasians sitting around the pool, you know, drinking beer. It's like 9:30 in the evening. I just want to watch fireflies and look at the stars. And these kids are literally jumping like 5 feet from me doing cannonballs. And I'm like, you little shits. And I turned around and I said to one of the kids who came very close to me and put water all in my face, I said, what the hell do you think you're doing? And the mother's like at the side of the pool. She goes, okay, everybody out of the pool. Everybody out of the pool. Like I was going to turn into this monster, which I wasn't. I just turned her and I said, thank you. Thank you for being so considerate. I really appreciate it. And she gathered all of her, you know, literally disrespectful, out of control middle school kids. And and left the pool. And as she was leaving, I said, "Thank you very much. Talk to you again soon." And I meant it. I was like, "Nice to see you again." And I literally meant it, which normally I'm like, "Oh, fuck." It wasn't like that. So something changed in me from our last Course in Miracles group. I chose not to go into that deep level of resentment, which was lovely for me.
Well, you made a decision, didn't you? And you acted on it.
I made a decision. First of all, I couldn't. The thing for me was I can't go to, oh, everything's rainbows and unicorns and I'm one with all life. When I'm feeling the fire, I have to move it.
Yeah.
So, and I think it was perfectly appropriate for me to say to the kid who was really misbehaving near me and intentionally attempting to disturb me, to go, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" And I think it was completely appropriate, which I did. And that felt like I've moved some of the energy, which was great. And then the mother, I felt like I actually felt friendly towards. And they left, they packed up everything and left right after that. So, and I felt really great. I felt like, I wasn't horrible, but I do have a thing about drawing boundaries. I don't like anything to be invading a space without something being said, because then people don't learn. I don't know how that mixes into this, but I find it next to impossible to allow bad behavior around me and not say a word. Complacency feels uncomfortable to me. But not to be correcting people in a harsh way, but, say whatever you have to say in a way that is, except I didn't say this so well to the kid, but it's just like, draw some boundaries, know that this is disturbing other people, and we're all good then. And that's how she responded, and it was lovely. I wasn't seeing the atonement, to be quite frank. However, I wasn't struggling with myself afterwards. And there was a certain level of peace that came. And I felt actually, because I wasn't struggling, I moved the energy, I drew a boundary, and then I felt like I could genuinely feel kindly towards her. Now, I don't know how all that fits in with what we just read, but at this stage of my evolution, that is about as best as I can do.
Well, you didn't really make it about you either. You made him think about his consequences, saying, "What are you doing?"
I know.
That's, yeah. You didn't get all whiny and whingy about how you just got all wet. You made it about, what are you doing? Have a look. What are you doing?
Yeah. And I didn't call him names, which was really good. I was so proud of myself. Like, you little shit. I didn't do any of that, which was really good.
But you've had time to think about it too, I guess, from the previous encounters as well with that family. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I really didn't want to respond in a way that was unkind or a grumpy old man or any of that. I really think that people should come together in community, but be incredibly respectful of one another and civil for one another. And then everything moves forward really beautifully. Linda, you want to go for number 9?
Sure. Everyone experiences fear, yet it would take very little thinking to realize why fear occurs. Few appreciate the real power of the mind, and no one remains fully aware of it all the time. However, if you hope to spare yourself from fear, there are some things that you must realize, and realize fully. The mind is very powerful and never loses its creative force. It never sleeps. Every instant it is creating. It is hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. It appears at first glance that to believe such power about yourself is arrogant, but that is not the real reason you do not believe it. You prefer to believe that your thoughts cannot exert real influence because you are actually afraid of them. This may allay awareness of the guilt, but at the cost of perceiving the mind as impotent. If you believe that what you think is ineffectual, you may cease to be afraid of it, but you are hardly likely to respect it. There are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level.
Hmm.
That's pretty powerful.
I'll just make sure that doesn't go on. No. Hmm.
I
You
would
said something
really like.
before, Gary, about how
Say again?
you said something before about how we're just not aware of what we're thinking most of the time. Well, you know, we're
Not-
thinking all the time. So to actually just observe it more often would be quite powerful.
I was teaching that class last night, and so at the end of it, I asked everyone, you know, individually, what's your takeaway from this evening? And I quoted something from one of the daily lessons, which was my thoughts are meaningless. And this one woman said, that's what I'm taking away, is that my thoughts are meaningless. They don't mean anything. You know, I can stand as an observer of them. So this one last paragraph says, you prefer to believe that your thoughts cannot exert real influence because you are actually afraid of them. Now that I can't really wrap my head around that. Because when it says because you are actually afraid of them, you prefer to believe that your thoughts cannot exert real influence because you're actually afraid of them. Okay, now it's starting to sink in, because if we really knew that every thought we thought actually takes form at some level, would we not all be terrified of what we think all day? Would we not? I would be, because you're actually afraid of them. This may allay awareness of the guilt, but at the cost of perceiving the mind as impotent. If you believe that what you think is ineffectual, you may cease to be afraid of it, but you are hardly likely to respect it. There are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level. That's very powerful.
Hmm.
This is page what? Joe, can you tell me what the page is?
31.
Page 31. T2.
It would be number 9 in the book.
Yeah.
It's the last paragraph before
The cause and effect.
part 7, cause and effect. Yeah. Yeah, that was a nice little summary. Shall we move
Yes, it
on,
was.
or
Yeah, I'm good.
okay? Cause and effect. Gary, do you want to
Lindy,
start? Yeah.
you want me to start? Okay.
Who wants to do?
You may still complain about fear, but you nevertheless persist in making yourself fearful. I have already indicated that you cannot ask me to release you from fear. I know it does not exist, but you do not. If I intervened between your thoughts and their results, I would be tampering with a basic law of cause and effect, the most fundamental law there is. I would hardly help you if I depreciated the power of your own thinking. This would be in direct opposition to the purpose of this course. It is much more helpful to remind you that you do not guard your thoughts carefully enough. You may feel that at this point, it would take a miracle to enable you to do this, which is perfectly true. You are not used to miracle-minded thinking, but you can be trained to think that way. All miracle workers need that kind of training. Well, that's pretty clear. What I love about this chapter is I've never read it put so clearly about why God doesn't intervene for our prayers and our beseechment of an intervention from God. That said it so beautifully.
Yeah, I was thinking how that paragraph is very much talking about why this book needed to be written, because you go to church. As far as I know, when people pray in church, they're asking for something external to help them, when in fact we are the power to do whatever we need to do.
And they're asking for God to intervene on the cause and effect of their own thoughts and their own actions, which has produced the external set of circumstances, which disempowers a person ultimately at the end of the day, because then the person never realizes or never grows to that point to where they manage their own mind, so they quit creating hell instead of heaven. And I think that this is a really cool chapter. Does everybody get what I'm saying about that?
And yet the empowering side of that is when you say something out loud, in the case of people praying to God, you actually create the own answer in your mind. If you say it out loud, if you're thinking about it all the time, it just becomes a muddle of things. You get depressed, you get upset, you get angry. Whereas if you actually say something out loud, you can answer your own questions. So that's the empowering side of it, from what I see from this.
Well, I'll take it another step. I think that unless, because it says you are not used to miracle-minded thinking, but you can be trained to think that way. And I love the line before that. You may feel that at this point it would take a miracle to enable you to do this, which is perfectly true. So it's almost saying we do not have enough mental discipline to watch what our thoughts are doing and the consequences of those thoughts. I don't know if you guys ever sit in meditation and attempt to still your mind and watch how many squirreling adventures your mind will go down as you're attempting to focus it on God. Your mind will go in a trillion different directions. This happens for me every morning. After about an hour to an hour and a half, my mind starts to really kind of start to quiet down, where I can focus for maybe 3 minutes at a time before I squirrel again. Or maybe after that, maybe it focuses for 5 minutes at a time, but it'll squirrel again. The bottom line is that our thinking creates, well, in my opinion, our thinking is our prayer. And that prayer reflects our attachment to whatever it is we're dwelling upon and thinking about. And that creates, I think, an energetic bond to whatever that thing is, whatever it is. If it's about our past, we're creating more of an energetic bond to our past. If it's fear of the future, it's creating an energetic bond to that particular fear. But I love this paragraph. I tell you, gang, if you're not doing the daily lessons, which I'm inconsistent in doing, but if you're not doing them, do them, because they really have a wealth of information in them. V, are you doing them regularly every day?
I don't do them every day. And sometimes I feel like I need to do the one lesson more than one day.
Yeah, me too.
I do find that it actually helps me to meditate. It gives me a focus for meditating.
It gives me a tool to manage the mind more effectively.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if any of you are shocked by some of the thoughts that you think. Please someone raise your hand and say that they can relate to what I'm saying.
I'm not shocked. They've been there for a while.
You've just
They've been
accepted it,
saying
Joe. Because sometimes I'm sitting, I'm like, I just cannot believe that I'm thinking this right now. It's like, why did my mind go there? And why am I thinking that? Especially in meditation, I'm like, oh my God. It's like, I have this insane thing up in my head. But when I catch it and I go, oh, these thoughts don't mean anything. You know, these thoughts are meaningless. Then it's like, I don't spend any time wondering why. I just go, oh, it's meaningless. It's just like watching a reel of an old movie go by and it means nothing. When I can get there, then it doesn't affect me. But man, if you're ever to follow the mind down the tendrils of where it can go, it's pretty interesting. Makes an Andy Warhol movie / Freddy Krueger movie / Jason movie look like Bambi and Up and Sound of Music. Oh.
Yeah, I've become that crazy person that's always asking themselves, why are you having this thought? Where is this coming from? What's the matter with you? Are you serious? Like, go back to the good stuff.
I know. It's wild. And sometimes this is the scariest part of it, is that you're just going about your day and suddenly you go and you walk into a certain belief or certain thought system and you just go over it and over it and over it until you just go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm feeling like garbage right now. Why am I thinking that? I catch myself doing that quite frequently.
It's time to do a trauma resolution technique.
Oh, I'm telling you, when I do that, everything starts to quiet down. I think that woman up at the pool is actually an angel in disguise, because she's revealed this whole other quadrant of my life where I've got trauma, which I've yet to find the time to reduce, but I'll do it this weekend or before. But I think there's this statement I made last night where I said that the obstacle is the way, which is the title of a great book. But the obstacle is the way, because what actually happens is the obstacles, which is random, crazy thinking, which is an obstacle, is really a revelation showing you where you are currently at and what you have to track back and begin to start healing. Because when I realized how absolutely disturbed I was by this woman's behavior, and I realized, oh, I'm disturbed. I'm not disturbed because I still have unresolved trauma about this past set of circumstances that I went through when I was much younger. And I thought that is worth its weight in gold, because when the obstacle reveals that, then you have a methodology to reduce the impact on you. And then you start making real progress. So I totally agree. The obstacle is a way. Become aware what the obstacles are, and then find out how to move through it or around it.
I was having a conversation with Murray the other day, who, had this successful accounting business that he built up from nothing to 40 odd staff and 2 offices, and and since retired, but he just comes from such a different place about money and business to me. And I revisited all the things that were my obstacles and shut me down. But it's exactly as you say, Gary, they're coming up again because they're there for me to work through and get past them to become successful.
I think the obstacles are the graduation points to a new level of self-awareness. And when you're trained in these tools, they give you then a window into where you have to do the work. The problem is that most people don't have these tools to actually shift beliefs or decode their nervous system from trauma. So they're left with just like, well, I'm aware where it comes from. Now what? So it really becomes important to utilize whatever you're utilizing, but to do the work on the history of whatever the obstacle is presenting. And the source of the obstacle always comes from something back there. Always. You kind of work on the tendrils of that, and the obstacle in front of you melts away.
Yep.
You don't do it, it just becomes bigger.
You need to keep that bit, Gary, for telling people why they need to do your course. Because we do, you know, I could, and I have in the past, I would sit with that predicament that Mary's gone, this is what you need to do. And I've come up with all these excuses. And I left it at that. But now, and I did kind of think, well, you know, they're the things I need to work on. But this has kind of hit home again. It's like, yes, these are the things you need to work on, and you've got the tools to do it. So let's do it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mm.
Joe, you want to give us the pleasure of your voice to number 2?
Sure. I cannot let you leave your mind unguarded, or you will not be able to help me. Miracle working entails a full realization of the power of thought in order to avoid miscreation. Otherwise, a miracle will be necessary to set the mind itself straight. A circular process that would not foster the time collapse for which the miracle was intended. The miracle worker must have genuine respect for true cause and effect as a necessary condition for the miracle to occur.
You know, I really believe that if people understood the law of cause and effect, realized their part in co-creating everything that they experience in their life, the world would be a far more peaceful place, and people would have relationships that are functional, because people would be taking individual responsibility for their projections, for their fear, and for what they co-created with another person. And I think without that idea of that my thoughts have created what I'm currently experiencing, without that, people have a tendency to blame one another for what their feelings are and what they're experiencing, without taking full ownership of what they helped grow into being. So for me, that cause and effect piece is so vital for healthy relationships, for functional organizations. I think it's just an essential cornerstone.
Well, we were talking about before about you know, the reasons why we think the way we do, the excuses we have. This is talking about fostering the time collapse for which the miracle was intended. So going back does collapse the time, so that going forward becomes easier.
Yeah, I always found it really fascinating that people actually believe that the past is done, you don't ever have to address it again, and that all it is a way forward. You just have to focus on the future. And I get the reasoning behind it, but I also get that that is a temporary fix that is not sustainable. Because eventually the subconscious mind brings up our issues for rationalization in time. It literally will surface those things that are not healed in circumstances or relationships that we have not dealt with, and it will put it in your face, and you will have to deal with it in the moment. And it's far easier to deal with it in the moment when you're not carrying the boulders of your past that add to the accumulation of overwrought emotions in that set of circumstances. Did I say that clear?
So
He's shaking your head. Joe and Linda are like, I don't know, Gary, that was a little off. I'm not sure.
This process.
yeah. Shall we go on?
Yes.
Three's a big one.
Linda or V, who wants to take that one?
You want me to take it, V?
Yes, please. I'll get all croaky. You won't finish it.
Both miracles and fear come from thoughts. If you are not free to choose one, you would also not be free to choose the other. By choosing the miracle, you have rejected fear, if only temporarily. You have been fearful of everyone and everything. You are afraid of God, of me, and of yourself. If you, you have misperceived or miscreated us and believe in what you have made. You would not have done this if you were not afraid of your own thoughts. The fearful must miscreate because they misperceptive creation, because they misperceive creation. Where did that come from? When you miscreate, you are in pain. The cause and effect principle now becomes a real expeditor. Thank you.
Expeditor.
Although only temporarily. Actually, cause is a term properly belonging to God, and his effect is his Son. This entails a set of cause and effect relationships, totally different from those you introduce into miscreation. The fundamental conflict in this world, then, is between creation and miscreation. All fear is implicit in the second, and all love in the first. The conflict is therefore one between love and fear. Wow. That makes it easy to remember then, doesn't it? Cause and effect.
I really, really love this one line when it says, you are afraid of God, of me, and of yourself. You have misperceived or miscreated us and believe in what you have made.
Mm.
And you guys aren't living in a highly I don't know about what it's like where you are, Joe, but where I am, there's a church on every corner. The first thing you're asked when you come into the community is, oh, what church do you go to? You know, Robert and I say, we don't go to church, with a big smile on our face. And what I always see is people misinterpreting or putting their own spin on the Bible and miscreating God in the image and likeness of their own prejudices.
Mm.
And that is what is rampant, at least where I am. Is it like that where you are, Joe?
Sort of. There's about as many churches in my city, town area as there is bars. But yeah,
Good balance.
it's sort of like that. But yeah, a lot do associate, oh, what church do you go to? You know, and it's odd that it's like that, but it is.
Yeah. It's interesting that a lot of the churches are now about, you know, a political agenda rather than a spiritual agenda, like following Christ, are following this right-wing, you know, white nationalist kind of agenda. That is,
I've almost said that churches are the blasphemy that the Bible speaks of. You know, don't follow these false prophets. And that's essentially what a lot of these preachers are doing, is they're preaching their own perspective, not the atonement perspective.
Yeah, I'm hoping Christianity wakes up soon. But we will see. Time will tell. But this is literally the cause and effect, and creating God and Christ in their own image, which has got nothing to do with Jesus' teachings. Are we 8 o'clock straight up?
We're 3 minutes too.
Oh, okay. Well, now that we've solved the problem with Christianity tonight,
We've solved all the world's problems. We're everywhere.
yes. It's so interesting to me because always the Course goes back and says it a million different ways. The only resolution is the atonement, is seeing through the eyes of the Holy Spirit at another and continuing to choose that, not paying attention to your thoughts, keeping mindful of your thoughts, but literally discounting them if they're not in a state of oneness. I just find it fascinating that is the constant resolution that the Course in Miracles repeats throughout every chapter. Anybody else find that fascinating? That it seems like so bloody simple, but it's so difficult to do. But that's, I think, the task at hand.
I think addressing it in so many different ways is also helping to address all the millions of different thoughts we have that are not serving us. So each time it's like a ping, ping, ping to the different thought systems that we're running.
Yep, that's what I was going to say, something similar to that. It brings to the different perspectives to view each and every paragraph, statement, sentence, phrase.
It also is meant to unravel the intellect and the different ways of thinking that we all have, because it's the same truth, but we all approach it from a little bit different angle. And so as it says the same truth, but in multiple different ways, it kind of helps everyone in their own particular thinking process.
Right.
Okay, so V, what's your word, darling?
I've got the power.
I see.
Saved your voice good for that.
Yeah.
I was good for that. Joey, what's yours?
Perfect love is the atonement.
Oh my God, stop it, Joe. That's mine too. I'm not changing it.
I cannot believe it. That was going to be mine too. However, I have it all written down. So I'm going to write this. Wherever there is fear, it's because you have not made up your mind. Okay, gang. Thank you, V. I don't know if you guys, well, you undoubtedly do because you show up every Tuesday night, but I think what we're doing is really important. I know it is for me because I keep getting returned back each week back to what, the truth is. And I think it's vitally important that we remember, otherwise the world just sweeps us away, or we allow ourselves to be swept away by the world. Because there's so much going on that we could be fearful about. And it's really, really, really important to stay focused. So I want to thank you all for coming and just being part of the community. And we've tried to get other people to come, but they're just like, they just wussy out on us. So
Coralie would like to join us, but she's working and she's missing us and she's watching the recording. So hi, Coralie.
Oh, good. Hi, Coralie. How are you?
She'll be back when she can.
Is she working on a movie?
Yes. I'm not sure what she's working on, but yeah. Top secret, I think.
Okay, but if it's another Lord of the Rings, you better get me an artifact or something that I can have. I hope you hear that, Coralie. I hope you steal something from the costume department.
And I may not be here next week because I'm gardening when I'm not doing this. It's just that it's school holidays. Shaz drives a bus for school, and that's why we've come away this week, because it's school holidays. But yeah, I've taken up gardening again, so I may not be here next week.
Don't make us come hunt you down, Linda, because we will.
I'm there in spirit.
We'll grab you by the hair and say, you get on this Course in Miracles group. You join us now. Okay, Linda, you'll be missed, darling. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay.
See you, Joey.
Take
Bye,
care.
Linda.
Bye.
Feel better, Veronica.